Hi everybody! We're back to recommend more titles and suggestions for things that you can get for free with your Carmel Clay Public Library card. I'm Catherine, and I'm joined today by Aggie and Jason for a totally rad discussion on all things 80s. Jason, why don't you go ahead and get us started today?
All right. Well, the 80s were defined by big hair, acid wash jeans, neon outfits, MTV, and in my case, sporting parachute pants and wearing stylish hats like these. If you're a Gen Xer like me, director John Hughes was a quintessential part of the decade. He had classic movies, Pretty in Pink, Some Kind of Wonderful, Weird Science, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and The Breakfast Club, which amazingly enough turned 35 this year. So with characters and like the characters in that movie, whether you were a brain, the athlete, basket case, princess, or a criminal, if you just wanted to play hooky like Ferris did, nobody pretty much captured teen angst in the 80s better than John did. He also had a very unique ear for music. I looked forward to the soundtracks about as much as the film itself. His placement of certain songs was just always spot on. The museum sequence in Ferris Bueller, as well as the quirky "Oh Yeah" by Yellow and the final credits on the school bus. I just remember how excited I was to even hear like the Thompson Twins at the end of 16 Candles. He just introduced me to so many artists I'd never heard of before. He even wrote the Wally World National Anthem from the movie Vacation. So he pretty much was a jack of all trades, and we kind of got the best of both worlds with his film. And with that, I'd like to have people keep an eye out for a documentary on him that we'll be adding to our collection soon. It's called Don't You Forget About Me. It's right there behind me. It's about 4 Canadian student filmmakers that kind of go on a quest to meet John Hughes and seek inspiration from him after he somewhat dropped out of the spotlight in the later years. The film was produced shortly before his death in 2009. It's just very endearing. You just feel as if you're actually in a John Hughes movie watching this. It has interviews with several members of the Brat Pack. It just brings more insight into the man and his work. You might also want to check out a few more recent films that capture truly the essence and spirit of John Hughes. Lady Bird, Booksmart, the way back in mid-90s, just all have that John Hughes vibe. So if you're looking for something that's a little more current, I would certainly check those out. John Hughes just kind of taught us to see the beauty in ourselves, moving us not just to survive high school, but life in general, and just find a way to achieve our own happiness and just not worry about what the whole world thinks. So because of that, John, I have to tip my cap to you. And Aggie?
Thanks, Jason. I'm a big John Hughes fan myself, and also like you, I'm a Gen Xer. So we love nostalgia, and that's why we're loving the 80s today. So during the last few months, I've really been diving deep into a lot of my favorites, classics that I love, and these are a handful of my favorites from the 80s. So my all-time favorite movie is Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Or any Indiana Jones film. It's great escapism. It's a classic of all time. And, everybody loves Steven Spielberg, great stuff from the 80s because it's just timeless. All of it is timeless. Adventure, escapism, just great soundtrack. The scores by John Williams. So you can never go wrong with a little Indiana Jones. And I know a lot of parents of my age or a little younger, they always like to introduce the kids that are old enough to some of those classics. So we have several copies in Blu-ray and DVD. And on that same vein, another super classic, Back to the Future. I want to get on that gigawatt train and just go back in time, 1985 sometimes. But again, it's another, just for the whole family, timeless classic about time travel, Marty McFly, his family, and just a great family comedy that just remembers you of a more innocent time, and always fun for the family and a new family to rediscover or discover for the first time. This is another one, a little bit like the Indiana Jones, but kind of people have forgotten about it over the years. Romancing the Stone was kind of a knockoff of that kind of thing, but it was hugely popular. And it's another action adventure comedy, stars Kathleen Turner, Michael Douglas and Danny DeVito. And it's just a wild, wacky adventure that just, again, it's escapism. It has a happy ending and just a bunch of adventure and things along the way. So I think a lot of people have forgotten about that one over the years. So it's another great one to revisit. My last two, I know I enjoyed watching the Dragon X mission over the last couple of months and the splashdown a couple weeks ago. And I'm a big NASA fan, disclosure there. But one of the movies and things that inspired me to do that was The Right Stuff. And it has a lot of familiar faces in there for you. And it's the story of the original Mercury 7 astronauts in the 50s and early 60s that really paved the way for anything we do, technologically related, space related, and you know, without those original people, we wouldn't be here where we are today. So it was inspiring to see the new people and how they've had a new modern take on the technology that's kind of been there forever. But it's a little long, but it's a gorgeous score, great acting, and just one of the really just solid classics of the 80s. My last one is, before there was binge watching, there were TV miniseries. And with those, you would just watch night after night, and every day you'd go back, you'd go to school in my case, or the water cooler and say, did you watch that night? Can you believe that? So one of the first miniseries, and I think really kicked off a little bit of binge watching, was the forgotten classic V. It aired in 1985, and it's about lizards disguised as humans who invade the earth. So if anything wants to take you away that things could be a little worse, that would be it. It's kind of a campy classic now, and it was just, people were just obsessed talking about it and binging it, if you will, over several nights. And it was one of those things that, you know, you just couldn't get enough of, because it's like a soap opera, but like a science fiction film. And so if you want to go back to some of the old classics, or you're tired, you don't have anything else to binge, we have a lot of recommendations for TV shows, miniseries, and things that before Netflix existed. And so, you know, go back to the future, come into the movie department here in adult services, and we'd be happy to hook you up with some great 80s and 90s content.
Thank you so much, Jason and Aggie, for those recommendations. I forgot about V. So good. I have a book recommendation for you, and it is called Tuesday Nights in 1980 by Molly Prentiss. So you're going to take a super nostalgic trip to the 1980s in the Soho art scene in New York City with Molly Prentiss's debut novel, Tuesday Nights in 1980. If you are a fan of Meg Wolitzer's The Interestings, you'll want to check this one out. In Tuesday Nights in 1980, the lives of an art critic with synesthesia, a mysterious orphan, an exiled Argentinian painter, and his muse are forever entwined after a tragic accident. This novel spans the course of a year and features many art and music cameos. Laurie Anderson sings at a party, and another character even spies Keith Haring tagging a subway station. This book is just teeming with fond memories of the 80s and art, and is a must-read for art lovers and 80s lovers everywhere. It's currently available from the library in print and from our digital collection in Hoopla as a digital audiobook. Thank you so much for joining us today for all things 80s. Happy reading, viewing, and listening.